Hey everyone, it's Norm from Tested, and today I have a quick and dirty build that combines two of my favorite things in the world of 1/6 scale collectibles and figures, and the elaborate costuming and sculpts that have to be recreated at that scale, as well as some electronics and LED lighting. Now, let's go in a little bit of a time machine way back 3 years ago. Remember, in 2019, there was a film that was released called The Wandering Earth. It is on Netflix in the States and maybe in other streaming services around the world, but it was this Chinese space epic written by, the source material was written by the writer of The Three Body Problem. And this massive high-budget science fiction epic had incredible special effects, grand scope and scale, turning the Earth into this arc ship traveling a millennium, multiple thousands of years outside of the solar system. And the costumes and props of this film were so incredible. And it turns out those costumes, those spacesuits that were seen in the film, were made by our friends at Weta Workshop. Back also in 2019, and when I went to San Diego Comic-Con, I met up with the Weta team and Richard Taylor at their booth, where they had some of the props and costumes they had made for that film, including that incredible spacesuit. And there's a blog post and a video on the Weta Workshop page where they detailed out their collaboration with the costume designers and the journey they went on to create this elaborate spacesuit, because not only was it the soft parts, this iconic big blow molded acrylic dome, very reminiscent of like that big helmet you saw in like the Prometheus, but it also had this very elaborate exoskeleton. And Weta had a lot of experience working on exoskeletons, like the exoskeleton in Elysium, the one that Matt Damon wears. And so it has all these articulating pistons and joints. And here it just was taken to a whole other level. So seeing that costume at Comic-Con really was a marvel to behold. And I wondered, would someone ever make this in 1/6 scale? And reader, yes, someone did. Damn Toys has been working on this for a long time, and they had just released this. Here it is. This is in 1/6 scale. One of the main characters from The Wandering Earth, I believe this is Captain Wang Lei, as it's read on this label here. And he's wearing that incredible spacesuit, scaled down. So you see, of course, the silhouette of this massive domed helmet. You see this backpack system, this exoskeleton system that's attached to all the different parts of the soft suit, from the forearm, the biceps here, all the way down to the legs as well, including all these actual moving ball joints and pistons. It has to actually articulate and be posable. And that was one of the big challenges, I believe, that Weta Workshop had to do in creating this suit, because as opposed to what you think of how an exoskeleton would work, where it would actually be helping the wearer lift heavy objects or doing some of that articulated movement for the wearer, in film, it's the other way around. The actors are wearing an exoskeleton that they are moving. It's their strength, their muscles that are moving the resin and cast pieces and machine pieces that they're putting on, and it still needs to have that full wide range of movement and still be comfortable for their performance. And that was a big thing that Weta had to do, and iterate to make sure that the actors could have that full range of mobility. And to have that then replicated down here in 6 scale, from these hoses to the weaponry, the firearms, the gauntlets, the boots, that dome, it's really a remarkable piece. I love this figure, but I could love it more, because it does not have the one thing I always want is some electronics, some lighting. And something that Weta built into the hard parts of the suits that they worked on were a few pieces of lighting. 3 key pieces, I believe. One, there was gonna be some internal lighting around the collar. If you look at some of the screenshots from the film or some of the concept art, there's a blue light, like a ring of blue light around the back of the collar of the suit. is, of course, this headlamp here, side mounted to the collar itself, has like a camera system, so a very kind of classic design where you'd have a kind of a GoPro style camera and a big headlamp to help illuminate the floodlight as these astronauts are walking through the parts of Earth as it's flying through the galaxy, I guess. And also there was like a shoulder light, this like orange ring that was built into the costume as well. Now I think with the LED lights I have and I've looked around for, I could replicate 2 out of those 3 lighting elements. If we take a look at the suit here, the dome pops off and it disconnects very easily. And I think there's enough space in the collar here for me to incorporate a very thin strip of LED lights, like a COB LED strip. And I have a blue one that I just picked up that can work. And for the headlamp here, I also think I have something that can work. If you look at this piece, it pops off, so it's nicely self-contained. That rectangle right there is the size of the 1/6 scale headlamp. It's not very big. You can see it's compared to the size of my fingernail. And I think it's a right opportunity to experiment with some new LED lights I was recently introduced to by Adam. And those are these very, very tiny LED lights. Look, that's how small we're talking about. These micro LED lights that you can buy that run off 3 volts, and they should be bright enough if I can wire this into this lamp here to create the effect of a headlamp. These come from Diodes, and I'll include a link to where you can buy them online. They come in a variety of color temperatures, warm white, cold white, red, blue, green, and they basically all run off of 3 volts. So I think I can actually wire that in. So let's grab all our materials. I'm gonna do some testing to make sure I can run these lights off of a single power source and then figure out a way to get that power source, that battery, into the figure itself, because I want this to be self-contained. I don't want to have this with a cable that plugs into a USB port or anything. And I think there might be room in the backpack to do just that. Okay, so we have our 2 lights here. Let's start with the simpler one first. This is just a COB LED strip, and unlike the other ones I've had in the past, which are 12 volts, this is 5 volts. So this one specifically picked out not only because it's the blue color, but because it runs off of USB power. So we'll do a quick test, plug this into a USB power supply, press the power button, and that's very, very bright blue. One of the reasons I chose this 5 volt, even though we're not using the USB battery pack, or my hope is not to use a USB battery pack, is I want to see if this can actually still illuminate with 3 volts, because I want to actually power this off of something like this, a coin battery. And a couple different options here. So these are both 3 volt coin batteries, and I picked up online a couple different holders. This is a 2032 battery, and this is a 1220 battery. If you're unfamiliar or you never thought about it, the reason this is called a 2032 battery is because it's actually 20 millimeters, very close. Here's 19.85. If we want to be, depends on where I actually do the testing the diameter. Yeah, it's 20 millimeters, 2 centimeters wide, and the thickness should be, well, here it's 3.15 millimeters, but essentially 3.2 millimeters. So 2032 means 20 millimeters wide in diameter, 3.2 millimeters tall, and then same here, this is 1220, so it is actually 1.2 centimeters, as you can see right there, and 2.0, just under 2.0 millimeters, 2 millimeters thick. So both 3 volts, around 3.3 volts, very small battery, and you can get these holders for them. So I want to see which holder I can get to fit in the backpack of the figure. The larger one nicely has a switch built into it, so if I can get that in, that'd be nice. And of course, the larger battery has a higher milliamp hour capacity, so it can run the LED lights longer. But we'll pop this in. And we'll use this as our test here. And 3 volts, let's see if this can actually power this LED light. Let me get some alligator clips. And yeah, no problem right there. So even when it's not running off of USB power at 3 volts, it's definitely not as bright, but it will still illuminate. And under the camera, it's gonna, I think, still give a nice blue light. No problem there. All right, we'll disconnect that. And then to show you how this tiny micro LED works, it has these 2 fairly rigid wires actually. That's actually gonna be nice. Be able to wire that through any hole I put into this flashlight. There it goes. It's so tiny. And it's actually pretty bright. It's not bad at all. You can see that fitting right in there. So the plan is to wire this through the flashlight. And yes, I'll be taking a drill to this and boring a hole right through the top. Maybe we'll go right through. There's already this wire here that I don't know if I want to actually get rid of, or I can go through the side and create a channel, but maybe we'll go right through and just replace this wire with these two leads here. And then we will cut a small strip of this COB LED out and then take apart that figure, take the helmet off, take that shoulder piece off, and see if we can affix a small strip of that right into the back collar. Time to take apart the toy. Okay, so here is our collar piece, the shoulders, and it's just attached with 2 pieces of Velcro. So it's a piece of Velcro, see right there, as well as in the front, and these 2 pistons fit snugly inside their fake hydraulic exoskeleton. So you can see there's gonna be a little bit of space in there to put an LED strip. Okay, so with our LED strip, the question is how much, what length of LED? I think just 1 section should be enough. I think in the original costume, it really was just around the back here. So I'm gonna cut 1 segment out. Okay, so I didn't know this. This is really neat. Normally, the COB LED would be this thick. So this silicone part in the middle, that's what's illuminated. You can actually see the tiny bits up close of the spacing of the individual diodes. And this is the shortest length you can cut it to have the exposed contacts, but I don't want this top and bottom part. I don't want that white part. So I was thinking I could use adhesive on the back and just mask it, you know, hide it with some electrical tape or some gaff tape, but I cut an extra length and just using a pair of scissors, cut out and trim this down while leaving the sides wider. But that then took this from, I think that's like an 8mm thickness, just under 5mm. That is fantastic. It makes this much lower profile and makes it possible to fit it into the back collar. But I'm gonna first solder. Let's get some wires in. Would you look at that? That looks pretty cool. Okay, next up, getting this tiny LED inside this piece. And this is where we're gonna have to do a little bit of drilling, a little bit of burrowing into the existing cast piece. This feels solid to me. Let's go rigidity here. I don't think I'll need that big of a hole. And there is a little bit of flex here, so I can bend that micro LED up and have it placed in the right place. Let's break out the rotary tool. Oh yeah, I can see right through it. There you go. Look at that, it went right under the existing wire sleeve. So I can hide it along this existing wire. Oh, that's gonna be so cool. There it goes. Nice. Oh God, look how bright that is. Okay, at this point, I have the lighting installed and I couldn't be happier with how it's going so far. So with this collar piece, you can see I have that tiny bit of COB LED light taped to the back, or using the built-in adhesive on that strip. One segment of it perfectly covers that back collar, and as you can see, the dome still fits in. So that's going to be no problem, and it tested at 3 volts. It's plenty bright with the wires out here. And then the tiny micro LED also perfectly fit in after drilling a hole through this this LED, or this headlamp attachment. It's going to nestle right in there, and I can run the very thin wire with this existing wire strand that's built into the model. I'm going to take some heat shrink tubing and just tidy things up a little bit so I don't add any unnecessary stress to the power cables, the wires there. And then now we're going to take a look at how we're going to power this and have it stand alone with the figures. So bring back our astronaut here. And as I was taking the helmet pieces apart, I noticed this backpack. So this is really beautiful backpack, also attached with Velcro, so you can hear that, but not really removable because of all this extra cabling and wires that are firmly affixed to all the different pistons here. So not gonna be able to make that modular, but I did notice that looking in the back here, there is an opening. So it is a hollow piece with some reinforced structure. And that's where I think I'm gonna see if I can put one of these coin battery holders on the inside. This one might be too big. This is that 2032. Here's my other, this is that 1220 battery holder. No switch, but I think I can get that inside and drop it inside without any problem. So I'm gonna solder some wires to this. So I have some exposed leads, and maybe tuck that in there and then wire it and then reassemble it. And then we should be ready to do a final looks and test. And the lights are installed. Oh, they look so good. I'm so pleased. In the wiring, I realized as I was connecting both LED and LED strip to one 3-volt battery, I was doing it in parallel, and it was taking up too much power, and the LED was getting really dim. So I realized there's enough space in that backpack here that I could fit 2 of these small batteries, because I was using the 1220 batteries. And so just rewired this headlamp to its own separate battery, and that way I can replace them when needed, and then shove them both into the backpack. And now it is nice and bright. That blue light though, I mean, both of these lights are working really well with the dome, with this helmet, creating like this bounce. So you see this, it's just a single piece of acrylic, but it looks like there's an extra layer, almost as if it's like the true astronaut helmets with 2 layers of material. I love how the light, you can see the reflection on this headlamp. You can also see it kind of hitting the side of the character's face. That's a nice little kick light built in to the character now, and everything came back together really nicely. One final thing though, I do think that looking at this, it's a little bit clean. I went and looked back at some of that Comic-Con footage at the Weta booth, and the ones they made, looking up close, has dirt on it. It has some weathering. It has on the boots and the hard parts, a little bit of that, of dust. And so I think I'm going to take some pigment powder that I have, some light browns, and maybe just apply it here and there, not going overboard, but just to make this look like it's not as issued, as if, it's been along that journey for however many years it was in the film. And I think that's going to also add and maybe kind of help the lighting as well. So I'm going to do that. And then of course we're going to take some pictures, but wow, I'm really happy with how this looks, and looks much closer to the costumes that were made for the film now. This was just a really, really fun, quick build, and it let me use that new micro LED light, which I'm sure we're going to be using a lot in the future. So I'm going to get that weathering on here, grab some photos, but thank you so much for watching and following along today. This is the Damn Toys 1/6 scale figure, Captain Wang Lei from The Wandering Earth, and I love this piece. All right, I'm Norm from Tested, and I'll see you next time.